All right, we're gonna get started having a seat on our mats today. So go ahead and find a comfortable position, whether that's cross-legged, feet out, feet on the floor, whatever works for you. Let your hands fall wherever's comfortable. That's maybe on your knees, down by your sides, in your lap. And we'll start to close the eyes. Start to focus on the breath. Breathing in through the nose and exhaling through the nose. Feeling that breath move in through the body, and then feeling it leave the body. Taking these breaths to start to recognize how it makes us feel, start to get comfortable with our breathing. We're also starting to let the day go, bringing ourselves into our rooms and onto our mats. Taking these next few breaths to start to get that comfort feeling. Taking a few more deep inhales and exhales here. And if we have the hands in the lap or on the knees, we'll go ahead and bring them to the sides. It's your choice. You can keep the eyes closed here, or if you like to open them, whatever feels comfortable to you. We'll inhale, bring the arms up. And as we exhale, start to twist the upper body over to that left side, dropping the hands down to wherever's comfortable. The gaze can either go over to the side wall or over the back shoulder. Again, just warming up the back, so wherever we're at right now. Taking those deep breaths here. And on our next inhale, we'll bring ourselves back forward, bringing those arms back up. As we exhale, twisting to that opposite side, letting those hands drop down. Again, letting that gaze go wherever's comfortable right now. Taking those deep breaths here. On that next inhale, turning ourselves back forward, bringing those arms back up. As we exhale, this time we're just gonna come straight over those legs. Going just as deep as is comfortable. Feeling the stretch all down that lower back. And taking the hands and just kind of walking them out so those elbows are straight. And then we're gonna start to walk them over to that right side, just getting a little bit of a stretch into that left side body. So we can take the left hand, place it on top of the right hand if that's comfortable, or just setting it right next to that other hand, whatever works for you. And breathing into that stretch. And we'll go ahead and walk those hands over to that opposite side. Again, we can take that right hand, placing it on top of the left to get a little bit more of a stretch down the side body, or just placing those hands right next to each other, whatever's comfortable. And take those deep breaths here. And we'll walk those hands back center. Leave it here for just a breath. And then slowly start to walk the hands back towards the body, giving ourselves a little help up. And we'll come up onto our hands and our knees. Taking a second here to line the wrists right under those shoulders. Line those knees right under the hips. The feet are going to be straight out behind us with the feet tops flat on the floor. As we inhale, we're going to drop the belly down, bring the gaze up. As we exhale, roll that spine in, tucking that chin into the chest. Inhale, dropping that belly down, gaze going up. Exhale, roll that spine in. Inhale, drop that belly down, gaze going up. Exhale, roll that spine. Inhale, dropping that belly down, gaze going up. And exhale, roll that spine. We'll do it one more time. Inhale, dropping the belly down, gaze going up. And exhale, roll that spine up. On our next inhale, coming just to a neutral spine. And we're going to take that right hand, sticking it straight out in front of us like we're going to shake someone's hand. And then take the left foot, stretching it straight out behind us. Little bit of a balance here. If you need to tap those toes down onto the mat, you can to help a little bit with that balance. Holding in that core, so we're trying not to arch that back in. We'll hold it for one more breath. And then place that hand on the mat, take that foot, placing it back on the mat. Take a second here to line up those wrists and knees. And then we'll take the left hand, placing it straight out like we're going to shake that hand. Take that right leg, sticking it straight out. Trying to keep that straight line from the crown of the head all the way down to that foot. Taking a few more breaths here. And we'll take that left hand, place it back down on the mat, place that right foot back down. Again, take that moment to line up those wrists and those knees. We're going to do those cat-cows again, but add a little bit more movement here. So we'll inhale, drop that belly down, bring that gaze up. And as we exhale, start to roll the spine while shifting those hips over those ankles. Coming down to the mat, dropping the forehead. And as we inhale, we're going to start to lift back up, coming back up onto all fours. Arching that back, gaze going up. Exhale, starting around the spine, tucking that tailbone in, dropping those hips down. Bringing that forehead down to the mat. And inhale, start to come back up. Arching that back down, gaze going up. Exhale, starting to roll the spine, tucking that tailbone, dropping down over those hips. Bringing that forehead down. And inhale, coming up. Dropping that belly down, gaze up. Exhale, roll that spine, starting to sink over those hips. Dropping that forehead. Doing that one more time. Inhale, coming up onto all fours. Dropping that belly down, gaze up. And exhale, start to roll that spine, tuck that tailbone, come down. And dropping that forehead. We'll hold it here for just a couple breaths. And on that next inhale, bring yourselves back up onto all fours. We'll tuck those toes behind us and start to lift those hips up towards the sky, coming into a down dog. Take a few breaths here and feel free to pedal those feet out, stretching out the backs of those legs. Taking your time here. And then let those legs come into stillness, taking a breath. And on our next inhale, walk those feet up to those hands. Folding over those legs with a slight bend in those knees. Take those hands, place them onto the thigh, and slowly roll ourselves all the way up, stacking those vertebrae on top of each other. And that head comes up last. Roll those shoulders down and back. Close the eyes for a breath. Opening those eyes back up. We'll inhale, bring those arms up. Keys going up towards the thumb. Exhale, swan dive over those legs. Inhale, half lift, sliding those hands right under those knees. Exhale, dropping all the way down that fold. Inhale, step the feet back to a high plank or dropping down onto the knees. Exhale, coming all the way onto the mat. Inhale, just lifting that chest. Exhale, down. Inhale, push back to that down dog. So you can pass through all fours here. Taking a breath when we get to that down dog. And on that next inhale, walk those feet up to the hands. Folding over those legs. And inhale all the way up. Bringing those arms with us. Exhaling down. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, swan diving ourselves forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, step back to that high plank or dropping onto those knees. Exhale, coming all the way onto that mat. Inhale, just lift that chest. Exhale, down. Inhale, push back to that down dog. Take that breath here. On that next inhale, walk those feet up to those hands. Folding over those legs. And inhale all the way up. Bring those arms with us. Exhaling down. Doing that one more time. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, swan diving forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, step back to that high plank or onto those knees. Exhale all the way onto the mat. Inhale, just lifting that chest. Exhale down. Inhale, push back to down dog. We'll take a couple breaths here. So feel free to pedal those feet out a little bit more if you need to. On that next inhale, we're going to lift the right leg. As we exhale, start to bend the left leg, bringing that right knee forward, dropping that foot between those thumbs. We're going to kind of hop that back left foot forward just a little bit, rotate it so we're down on that heel and that toe is kind of pointing off to a corner. We'll take the hands, place them up on that thigh, bringing ourselves up. Once we're standing, feel free to adjust that stance if you need to. So that back foot's kind of pointing off at a corner. If it's too much on the knee, you can rotate that foot so it's parallel with the mat, or you can come up onto those toes. And we'll take the hands, place them on the hips, kind of rotate those hips so they're squared off with each other and facing forward. And then we'll put a bend in our front knee. And inhale, lift those arms up. And we'll bring the gaze up just towards the sky. We're doing a little tiny back bend here, so we want to make sure to engage the core here. Taking those deep breaths. Just a couple more breaths here. And we'll start to bring the gaze back forward. Exhale, bringing the arms back down. You can take the hands, place them on the hips. So our next, we're gonna rotate that back foot so it's parallel with the mat. Excuse me, parallel with the mat. And we might want to step that foot back just a little bit to get a little bit of a longer stance here. So this time we're going to take the hands, place them on the hips. Instead of squaring forward, we're going to come sideways with those hips. So we need to adjust that stance, or if you need to kind of straighten it out a little bit, and then put that bend back in that knee. And then we'll start to sink down into that leg, bringing those arms over those legs, and the gaze goes over that front middle finger. Taking a few deep breaths here. Trying to keep those arms nice and parallel with the legs. So if you feel the arms start to drop, just start to lift it back up and make sure to roll the shoulders down the back so we're not arching them up by the ears. And taking those breaths. On our next inhale, we're going to put a bend in that front elbow. And as we exhale, we're going to shift that upper body over that front leg, swinging that left arm up and overhead. So we're coming at an angle with that arm. The gaze can either be down at that front foot, at the side wall, or up at the ceiling. Try not to put too much pressure into that elbow so that shoulder cinches up. Just kind of resting it lightly on that leg. And breathing into it. Taking a couple more breaths here. And on the next inhale, bringing ourselves back up. We'll bring those arms out. Exhale, drop the arms down. Straighten that front leg, kind of give it a little bit of a rest. And then we'll just hop that back foot forward. So we're coming just to a nice standing pose here at the top of our mats. Let those hands come down. Close the eyes, take a breath. We'll open the eyes back up and go into a little bit of a balance here. So we're going to keep with that right leg being our planted leg. So the arms can kind of float out to wherever is going to help you a little bit with your balance. Finding that spot on the floor that's kind of down in front of us that's not moving. We're going to slowly start to lift the left foot up off of the mat. Those toes coming up last, bringing that knee up. We can stay right here if our balance is a little challenged, or we can open that leg off to the side, bringing that foot to rest on that calf. We can rest it on that inner thigh, or if our balance is a little challenged here, we can take that foot, placing it on the ankle with those toes just tapping the mat. So we're opening up those hips here, opening up that leg. And when we feel like we found our balance, we'll bring those arms up. So they're kind of coming at an angle out of the shoulders. So we're not straight up and down here, we're wide with those arms. If you want to open those fingertips up so they're nice and wide. And then taking deep breaths here. If at any point you fall out of the pose, it's okay, you can get back into it. Taking any variation that's comfortable to you. We're going to move into one more balance on this side. So we can choose to stay in our tree, unhook that foot, bringing that knee forward again. And then we'll slowly start to tilt the upper body forward while shifting that foot back at the same time. So if we don't want to go straight from tree, we can release the foot down. Inhale the arms up, bring that leg up, and kick it back. I'm going to go sideways so you guys can kind of see here. Oops. So we're finding, again, that spot that's not moving on the floor. That back foot is pointed down towards the floor. Those toes are down. Trying to keep a straight line as we can from the top of the head to the back of that foot. And if that leg's not very high off the ground, that's okay. Just breathing into this, holding it for just one more breath. And then slowly bending that front leg, dropping that leg down onto the mat. You can release those arms down. We'll rotate that front foot, so it should be that right foot, so it's parallel with the mat, so we have a nice wide stance. Taking a second to line up those toes with each other. Inhale those arms up. And as we exhale, we're going to fold forward, just coming halfway. If that's too much on the back with the arms out, you can take the hands, placing them on those hips. Or bringing the arms out to the side as well. That does put a little bit more weight on the back also. And then on the next exhale, bringing ourselves all the way down. Letting that head hang. Releasing any tension there might be. Taking deep breaths. Taking this moment right here to catch the breath if we've lost it at all. Refocus on that breathing. Taking just a few more breaths here. And we'll take those hands, placing them under the face, straightening those elbows, and start to walk those hands towards the front of the mat, rotating those feet as we do. And then we'll take that right leg, stepping it back, coming into a down dog. Taking just a couple breaths here. And on that next inhale, lifting the left leg this time. As we exhale, starting to put a bend in that right leg, shifting that left leg forward, dropping it between those thumbs. And kind of hopping that right foot forward just a little bit, rotating it so that back heel comes down. Those toes are pointed off to a corner. Hands can go up on that thigh, giving ourselves that little help up. Again, now that we're standing, we can adjust that stance if we need to. Take a look at those back toes if they're off at that angle. Or again, rotating that foot so it's parallel with the mat. Or up on those back toes. Taking the hands, placing them on the hips. Squaring those hips forward, making sure they're pointing right in front of us. And then putting that bend in that front knee. And inhale those arms up. And then we'll bring that gaze up towards the sky. Again, in that little tiny back bend here, so we want to make sure that core is nice and engaged. Taking those deep breaths. And we'll slowly start to bring that gaze back forward. Exhale those arms down. Again, this next one kind of getting into it's a little bit awkward. So we're going to rotate that back foot so it's parallel with the mat. Kind of shift those hips over. I'm going to switch so you guys are looking at my backside. Shift those hips over. That stance is going to be a little bit longer here, so adjust that back foot. So we're parallel with the mat here. Again, place those hands on those hips, kind of shifting them over, putting that bend in that left leg, arms out over those legs, gaze over that front middle finger. Again, trying to keep those arms parallel over the legs. So just if you start to feel them drop down, just slowly lift them up and relax those shoulders down your back. And breathe. On our next inhale, putting that bend in that front elbow. As we exhale, shifting that upper body over that leg, bringing that right arm at that angle over the head. The gaze is either down at that foot, over at that sidewall, or up at the sky. And try not to put too much pressure into that elbow so that shoulder's coming up, just lightly resting it. And taking those deep breaths. Taking just a few more here. And on that next inhale, bringing ourselves back up. Exhale, bring those arms down. Kind of straighten that front leg, give it a little bit of a rest. And then kind of bend it, popping that back foot forward, coming to the top of our mats. Letting those hands just rest at our side. Close the eyes, take that breath. And we'll slowly open those eyes back up and move on to our balance on our other side. So again, those hands, float them out to wherever is going to help you with that balance. Finding that spot that's not moving. And we'll slowly start to lift that right foot up off the mat. Rolling those toes up. Lifting that knee into the chest. Again, we can stay right here. Or we'll slowly start to shift that leg out to the side. Placing that foot on that calf. Bringing it up onto that inner thigh. Or again, if that balance is a little challenged, taking the foot, placing it on the ankle with those toes, tapping that mat. So we're opening those hips up here. And when we feel balanced, we'll bring those arms up. Again, those arms are coming wide from the shoulders, so we're not straight up and down. We're nice and wide here. And take those deep breaths. And if at any point you fall out of these balances, you can always pop back into them. And we'll move on to that last balance on our other side. So we can bring that foot off the leg, shifting that knee back up towards the chest. And then slowly tilting that upper body forward while kicking that leg back at the same time. Again, if we want to come fully out, we can place both feet on the mat. Bring those arms up. And then bring that knee into the chest and then start to kick back. That foot, that back foot, those toes are pointing down towards the ground. Trying to keep as straight of a line as we can between the top of the head and the back of that foot. Again, that leg, if it's not very high off the mat, that's okay. Taking just a few more breaths here. And then slowly bring that leg down, coming into a little bit of a wide stance here. Turn around for you guys. So we're gonna take that left foot, rotate those toes so they're parallel with the mat. And then take that second here to adjust those feet so those toes are in line with each other. We'll inhale the arms up and exhale, folding all the way down this time. We'll take the right hand, placing it directly in front of the face. And then as we exhale, start to lift that left hand up, twisting over, getting a little bit of a twist in the back. If that hand doesn't reach all the way to the ground, if you have a pillow or a block or a book or something that you can put under that hand, that will help a little bit get you up. And if that hand that's pointing up towards the sky needs a little bit of a break, you can drop it over that lower back. Taking one more breath here. And then exhale, bring that arm back down. We'll replace that left hand or that right hand with the left hand coming right down in front of that face. This time as we inhale, we'll lift that hand up to the sky, getting that twist in that back. Again, if that arm needs a little bit of a break, go ahead and drape it over that lower back. Taking those deep breaths here. And exhale that arm down. And we'll slowly walk the hands to the front of the mat, rotating those feet. And step that front foot back. Drop down onto those knees and then come down all the way onto our bellies. You can let the hands just rest down by the side and then turn the face to whatever cheek is comfortable. We'll take a couple breaths here. Use this time to catch the breath if you've lost it and reconnect with the breathing. We'll take a couple more breaths here. On our next inhale, we're going to start to lift that chest up, lift those feet up, lift those arms up, and bring that gaze forward. So as we inhale, start to lift that head up, turning that neck, that gaze going forward, lifting those shoulders up, lifting those arms. Toes are pointing straight behind us off the mat, holding that belly in tight. And as we exhale, dropping that forehead, turning the head to the opposite cheek is resting. We'll take a couple breaths. And then we'll do that same thing, but this time we're gonna have the arms out to the side with a bend in the elbows. So on that next inhale, start to lift that head up, lifting those shoulders, gaze forward, bring those arms out to the side with that bend in those elbows. Wide fingers, taking a breath. And then slowly bringing ourselves back down, rotating that head to that opposite cheek. Taking a couple breaths. And we'll do that one more time, but this very last time, our arm's gonna be straight out in front of us. And we'll hold it for a couple breaths. So on that next inhale, start to lift that head up, turning it so it's facing forward, lifting the shoulders, bringing those arms straight out, holding those bellies in tight, taking a couple breaths here. And exhale, coming back down, turning that head, resting that cheek. Taking a deep inhale and exhaling it out. We'll take the hands, place them under the shoulders. Start to lift ourselves up, coming up onto our knees. We're gonna stretch our hips. So we're gonna take the right knee. So I find it's easier to kind of pop up on my left toes, almost like I'm gonna go into that plank and kind of shift that right knee forward. So that knee is gonna come right underneath me. And then I can drop back down onto that back leg, untucking those toes. So this front knee is kind of our anchor for how deep this stretch is going to be. So the more it's facing directly in front of us, the less of a stretch, depending on how tight your hips are, it's going to be. But the more we angle it to the side or bring that foot parallel, or that leg, sorry, parallel with the mat, the deeper of a stretch we'll get. And again, it's going to be all dependent on how tight those hips are. So our back leg, that left leg is coming straight out behind us. That foot is resting right on top of that mat. Trying to keep those hips nice and even with each other. So if we need to grab a pillow or something to stick under that right hip so we don't start to sink down onto it. So right now we're up on those hands. Kind of taking this a little bit in stages to allow that hip to loosen up. So we'll stay up on the hands for just a couple breaths. And then when we feel ready, we can drop down onto those elbows, but only when we feel ready and we feel like that hip is loosened up. But at any point as we go through these stages, if that hip starts to tighten back up, move out of the stretch that you're in. So take those breaths here while we're on those elbows. And if we feel ready, we can kind of drop those hands, stacking those hands, dropping the forehead down, or going all the way to the mat, whatever is comfortable. Again, if it's too much on that knee or on those hips, you can always come out of whatever part of the stretch you're in. You can give those toes a wiggle. Sometimes they start to tingle or go a little numb. So we give them just a little wiggle here. And then let them relax. We'll hold this for a few breaths to allow that hip to loosen up. Always remembering to try to keep those hips nice and even with each other. And when we feel ready, we'll start to come out of the pose. So if we have that forehead on the mat, we'll start to lift the head up, kind of bring those shoulders in, those elbows in under the shoulders. Take the hands, place them right where those elbows were, coming up on those hands, and then slowly rolling down onto that right hip. Bringing that left leg around, and then stretching that right leg out in front of us. Giving it a nice wiggle. Rotate that ankle around, wiggle those toes. And then we'll come back onto those hands and those knees so we can do that other leg. So again, whatever's comfortable to get into the pose. Like I said, I like to put that right foot out, kind of coming onto those toes, and then sliding that left leg forward, and then sinking down onto that back leg. Again, that left knee is going to be that anchor, so if we have it forward or that foot parallel to the mat, whatever's comfortable on that hip. Placing those hands down on the mat, and then giving ourselves a couple breaths here to allow that hip to kind of loosen up. Again, trying to keep those hips nice and even with each other. So if we need to stick that pillow or anything right under that hip, that will help just a little bit. Few breaths here. And if we feel ready, we can sink down onto those elbows. Again, taking those breaths to allow that hip to kind of open up and relax. And if we feel ready, we can take those hands, stacking them on each other, placing the forehead on those hands, or going directly down onto the mat. Whatever comfortable. Again, trying to keep those hips nice and even with each other. And give those left toes a wiggle. And then let them just relax. And take those breaths here. Remembering at any point if that hip or knee starts to tighten up, always we can come out of whatever part of the pose we're in. Taking a few more breaths, allowing that hip to relax. And when we feel ready, if our forehead's down on the mat, we'll start to lift that head up. Start to bring those elbows in under those shoulders. And then place those hands right where those elbows were, coming up onto those hands. And then slowly rolling down onto that left hip. Bringing that right leg around. Kicking that left leg out. And giving that leg a nice wiggle here. Rolling that ankle, wiggling those toes. Then we'll take that right leg, placing it down on the mat, and slowly making our way all the way down onto our backs. We'll take one foot, place it on the mat. Take that other foot, place it on the mat. Take those arms out like a T. We'll bring the knees into the chest, and then straighten those legs up as much as we can. Kind of let that blood rush down. Give those ankles a swirl, going in one direction. And then change that direction of those ankles. And then point those toes up and then flex those feet, going back and forth. And then letting those feet relax. Putting a bend in the knees, letting those feet drop down. Keeping that bend, trying to keep those knees up over those hips so they're pointing up towards the ceiling. And we'll draw some circles with those knees. Going as big or as small as is comfortable. Trying to stay in one direction. And then change that direction. Bring those knees back. Kind of shift them side to side here. Not all the way down to the ground unless that's comfortable, but just kind of so you get a little bit of a side massage on the sacrum here, on that lower back. And then we'll bring those knees into the chest. Take a hold of the legs, bringing the forehead up to those knees, giving ourselves a tight squeeze here. Tensing everything up, almost like we're in like a little cannonball. And then let it all come down onto the mat. Relaxing those feet down. Relax those arms down by the sides. Just letting everything sink into our mat. Closing our eyes. Starting to focus on that breath. Clearing the mind of any thoughts that we might have. Letting the tension that we might be holding in the body just melt away. Allowing any stresses to just float with each exhale. Letting everything leave the body and leave the mind. Each exhale, we're sinking deeper and deeper into our mats. Taking the opportunity to not have to worry about anything, to not have to think about anything. Just be with ourselves. We find that thoughts start to come back into the mind, or maybe those wheels just keep turning. Try to just focus on the breath, feeling each inhale come in through that nose, moving all the way down into each part of the lungs, filling all the arms, filling all the legs, and then feeling it go in that same path as we exhale it all out. Taking this time again to just be with yourself. start to bring a little life back into the body by wiggling the fingers and toes. Roll the wrists and ankles. Rock your head from side to side. Begin to deepen your inhales and exhales. When you feel ready, slowly take one foot, place it on the mat, and follow it by that other foot. And then slowly bring one knee into the chest, followed by the other knee. Taking hold of those legs and rocking side to side. And when you feel ready, roll onto your right side. With your right side grounded by the earth, leaving your left side open to the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the gifts the universe has to offer you today. When you feel ready, come up to a comfortable seated position. We'll take the hands, place them in front of the heart. Close the eyes one last time. Take a deep inhale and exhale it all out. Thank you for sharing your practice with me this evening. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.